this is when you really have to double down on your wealth consciousness practices, because you're fighting emotional pathology and elemental imbalance and stress and anxiety and depression in the collective consciousness. But then you're also dealing with your own personal stuff. And it's really difficult to not merge those two things. It's really difficult not to pick up other people's energetic shit. And especially with your family, who are the people that you are the most connected to in the collective consciousness, right? It's very easy to pick up stuff from your family. So this is the time you've got to double down. This is Leah Steele, aka The Wealth Witch, and this is my podcast. I'm here to activate you to remembrance of your divine birthright to be wealthy in all areas of your life. This podcast is for people ready to have controversial conversations about the financial control, manipulation, and tyranny that faces humanity today. I'm gonna live in freedom, freedom. I'm gonna live my destiny. I'm gonna live my freedom, freedom. I'm gonna live, the time is right now. The Wealth Witch. It's for the people who are ready to wake up, deconstruct their wealth programming, and free themselves from the financial slavery consciousness that serves the global financial agenda. I'm committed to realizing a new global wealth paradigm where economic freedom is the reality and where you get to design and live the life of your dreams. Now let's do the damn thing. Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Wealth Witch podcast. I am your host, Leah Steele, the Wealth Witch. And today we are going to be talking about how to be merry, jolly, and peaceful over the holidays with family traumas, triggers, and overall global fuckery happening in the world. So the holiday time it's an interesting dynamic in the world during the holidays because, we've moved this time of year so far into consumerism that there is a tremendous amount of stress that is placed upon people this time of year. It's, this need to keep up with the Joneses. If you're a parent, you're typically trying to create some kind of incredible, magical holiday experience for your children. I think we definitely have this programming and conditioning around wanting everything to be better for our kids than it was for us. So if you're anything like me, my mom was incredible at putting holidays together. And my Christmases were always magical. And I remember those times so fondly in my youth and in my childhood. So as a child, my mom always put together these incredible holidays, these incredible Christmases. And my memories of that time of year are so fond, and I want to create those memories for my children. And so it's always been an incredibly stressful time of year for me because I'm always trying to pull a new rabbit out of a hat and make things, more magical this year than they were the year before and create these incredible memories for my kids. And so, that's a level of stress that comes with that. And there's also, a tremendous amount of financial pressure because of how much we've put focus on the consumerism part of Christmas and the holidays. Really, I feel like, especially if you're an American, starting from Thanksgiving, there's these expectations around holidays, and it puts a tremendous amount of stress and pressure on people financially. So what we've created in our culture is we've created it, but the global financial agenda doubles down this time of year, right? Because this is the time of year that we can get people to overextend themselves, to run their credit up, which means they're paying more interest to financial institutions, banks, organizations. It's all been created by design. But what ends up happening is people are under a tremendous amount of financial pressure this time of year because they're having to put out more money than they typically do during the year in a month. And I think you feel that regardless of whether you're struggling financially or you're making money, because there's just additional expenditures that go out. What's happened in our culture, though, is instead of this time of year being what it's kind of pitched to be or is intended to be, which is like this happy, merry time that we're spending time with family, you see the collective consciousness dropping into deep states of depression. And because we're all connected, our hearts, our souls are, through 6-dimensional consciousness, we're all connected to one another. It's damn near impossible to not feel and experience that low level depression and anxiety that is rippling through the collective consciousness right now. Because if you think about it, the majority of people are in a place where they are struggling financially. So the majority of the population of this planet is struggling financially, which means that when there are added financial stressors, then it creates more stress, more depression, more anxiety. And so it elevates in the collective consciousness. And then, as beings who are collectively connected, we experience that. So for me, I tend to be a very, very balanced emotional person. But at this time of year, I have to be really, really careful about making sure that I'm staying on top of and maintaining my personal practices, making sure I'm being disciplined in my self-care and taking care of myself, because even I get affected by the underlying depression and low-level anxiety that's happening in the collective. One of the things that I find happens to me most often during this time of year is I start getting exhausted. And that I think has to do with me sort of trying to ward off all this collective consciousness, trauma and trigger and depression and anxiety. I'm trying to ward it off from my field. And as a result, I get tired more easily. So I need to nap more. And I really need to double down on self-care. So I think it's important to understand what's happening in the collective right now, because once you understand, then you can really begin to, tap back into that process of, okay, what's happening in my body energetically? How am I feeling? What are my emotions? What's mine and what's the collective's? Because when we can, intentionally decipher that and really start to dive deeply into that, then we have the ability to be like, okay, that's not mine, and I'm not willing to carry that right now. The other thing, though, that happens this time of year is that we are spending time with our family. And when we're spending time with our family, in a regular situation, traumas and triggers arise and present themselves. But now we're spending time with our family when everybody's feeling tremendous expectations of them, where, we're trying to combat the overall malaise that's happening in the collective consciousness. We're potentially worried about things financially, or we're juggling things financially. Potentially we're feeling exhaustion from, what we're picking up from the collective. So it's a perfect recipe for disaster. This is why so many fights happen in families over the holidays, because you have a bunch of really stressed out people coming into an already traumatic and triggering environment. Every family has their triggers. Every family has their traumas. But this is a time of year where money trauma in particular gets activated and gets reactivated. So it's really important that you remember that. So as you are going into this time of year, and for me, I feel like it really is now until the middle of January, this is when you really have to double down on your wealth consciousness practices, because you're fighting emotional pathology and elemental imbalance and stress and anxiety and depression in the collective consciousness, but then you're also dealing with your own personal stuff. And it's really difficult to not merge those two things. It's really difficult not to pick up other people's energetic shit. And especially with your family, who are the people that you are the most connected to in the collective consciousness, right? It's very easy to pick up stuff from your family. So this is the time you've got to double down. You have to commit to doing the wealth consciousness work. You know, when the holiday period comes, you know, a lot of us are really busy. We're going to holiday parties. We're spending time with friends. We're spending time with family. Some of us are traveling. You know, and we can just now even just riff a little bit on what's happening globally right now with the virus puts an even more added pressure. Now it's like, you know, families are split because some are vaccinated and some aren't. And then it's like, how are we going to have our family holiday together? And we've got all these other global pressures that are happening. So we're literally creating this. It's a pressure cooker that's about to explode, literally. This is what the holidays can be. So it's important that you're doing your own personal work for, you know, self-care and just, you know, calming of your nervous system. That's important. But the wealth consciousness work is really important right now. So it's about making a commitment to yourself to show up perhaps in a way that, you know, you haven't even been doing up until this point. You know, this is a time of year when a solid hour of wealth consciousness work every single day is going to go a really long way for you not being as affected by what's happening in the collective or as affected by what's happening with your family, and to help you not get re-triggered in your own money traumas. So, you know, what does this look like? Well, for me, like I have these solfeggio frequency playlists that I've created for my paid programs, for Ouroboros, for Mastering Your Spiritual Money Game. And you can find these on my Spotify channel. I'll make sure that the links are dropped for you in the show notes, or here in the group if you're watching on Facebook, so that you have access to those solfeggio frequency playlists. And often, like, all for an hour or 2 hours a day while I'm working, I'll just play those solfeggio frequency playlists in the background. They're literally reprogramming you at a DNA level. They're bringing you into states of calm and content and, you know, balancing you at a cellular vibrational and frequency level. So that's something that's easy that you can do. Play in the background, play while you're in your car, play while you're getting ready for work in the morning, play while you're cooking dinner. And use all the wellness tools that you have at your disposal. If you're a Healy person, if you have this incredible micro frequency device that many of us are using right now, make sure that you are using your Healy every single day, multiple times a day. Do whatever you can to support yourself. But for me also at this time, you know, meditation becomes really, really important again. Conscious parallel realm visitation, which is something that I talk about a lot that I really love. And we'll put a link to my conscious parallel realm visitation training video also for you, so you can check that out. But also just coming back to basics and to the foundations. And I had an incredible episode of my podcast that was just released where I was actually talking about this, and I was speaking about coming back to basics and our foundational work. This is the time to return to those things. So to pull up the podcasts that you like listening to and listen to, you know, the parts of them that really struck you and inspired you on repeat. Looking for those books that have inspired you or have been really, really helpful in your expansion of your financial consciousness journey. You know, I still go back to Jen Sincero's You're a Badass at Making Money. I love that book. There are pieces of that book that were so profound to me. And I still go back to sections of that book, or I'll just literally open my Kindle and start scrolling and stop somewhere and read a few passages of it. Trainings or courses or programs that you've taken where you've gotten something, you know, really profound out of a piece of content. Like, I literally have a list of courses that I've taken, you know, like where in the video the minutes were that struck me and helped me move through something. I have bookmarks in my Kindle in books that I read, so that I can literally just go back to that place. You know, I've got a lot of content on my SoundCloud that you can go and listen to that's free. You know, there's a lot of resources that I provide even in forward-facing content My Facebook group, Wealth Alchemy, has heaps of content in there that you can listen to. And obviously, again, we'll drop all these links so that you have everything. But now is the time that you need to be disciplined and you need to be dedicated to making sure that you're staying on top of it, because this time of year, not only is it easy to slip back because we're busy and we feel like we don't have time, and then we're also having a little bit of anxiety, and so we're not making time. So not only is it easy to like plateau and get stagnant, but it's really easy to actually slide backwards into scarcity and into lack and into frustration and into feelings of not being worthy and not being deserving. And that's not what you want to do this time of year. You want to be happy. You want to be jolly. You want to be spending time with your family. You want to be peaceful. But it's important that you're taking care of yourself so that other people's energetics and emotions aren't negatively affecting you. So you actually can be the person that is content and calm and peaceful inside your family unit throughout the holidays, but you've just got to make sure that you're doing your work in order to stay in that place. So, I think that I want to talk about and address the consumerism of the holidays right now, because this is something for me that has been an ongoing place where I've had to do personal work. Because one of my love languages is giving and receiving gifts. This time of year, my birthday's on December 1st. So it kind of, begins with my birthday and then carries on into January. But this time of year it's important to me because that's something that's important to me. I love giving gifts. I was just talking to my team on my team meeting this week about like, I want to give a gift to my community of some kind. And so like, we've been talking about like what that's going to be, what that gift is going to be. I like giving and I also like receiving gifts. And so, but this time of year, it's so driven by consumerism that I have been prone in the past to do what most people do, which is overextend myself, overspend, trying to create the perfect holiday, trying to find the perfect gifts, trying to, give love in the form of material items or possessions. And so this has been, like I said, it's a place where I've really had to do a lot of personal work. What I have found, which is interesting, is that as my income has increased and as I've had more disposable income during the holidays and as I've had more money to spend and as my circle of people that are close to me in my life, as their bank balances have also increased and as they've, had more money to spend, it's like all of a sudden it's less about the materialism and we're moving more into a place where we're more thoughtful of like, what can I give them that's really heartfelt, that really means something and really matters? And I think everyone should adopt this regardless of what your bank balance is. And this is another thing that we actually touched on and talked about in that podcast that I did with Chela Diaz. And that it was great. If you haven't listened to that podcast, go listen to it. Back to Basics. I think it's called, Back to Basics or something about foundations. So definitely listen to that, one of the recent podcasts. But when you have a lot of disposable income and you move into a place where money really isn't an object and you can buy the things that you desire, then you have to start getting more intentional about the gifts that you're giving, because when someone can buy something for themselves, it's not that fun to give them something that they just normally go out and buy themselves or that they would have the ability to buy themselves. And I really feel like as a collective, this is where we need to move during the holidays. We need to move away from consumerism. We need to move away from spending with the big retailers and the big corporations, because those retailers and corporations, they don't have our highest and best interest at heart. They really just don't, right? And I really even struggle with this because Amazon is so convenient. And in today's day, the way society is and the way that the world is right now, with all the lockdowns that have happened and then all the supply chain issues, especially if you're living in America, that have been happening, like Amazon's so easy. But the reality is that Amazon does not have your highest and best interest at heart, right? And so for me, like, I feel like it's so much more important to support local business, to support small business, to support entrepreneurs. So for me, like this time of year, like I love doing things like finding people in my community who have products or who have services and gifting friends those products or those services. Making a difference to entrepreneurs, to small business people, to local business people that really need the support, and not supporting the large corporations, not supporting the Targets or the Walmarts or the Amazons, or the big department stores. Because the truth is that all of those large conglomerates are tied into our global elite, and their job, as they see it, is to control and manipulate us, right? We're cattle, essentially. We are compliant commodities. But this time of year, like this is their gold mine. This is where, they're getting us overextended, spending money that we don't have in most cases, feeling stressed, opening up new lines of credit. Like this is the time of year where they maximize their control. And they're making huge financial benefit from us being in states of lack, scarcity, and stress. So if we can begin to shift out of that mindset of go out and spend with big business during this time of year, go out and max out our credit cards, go out and overextend ourselves, and move back to a place of, it can still be about giving gifts. It can still be about sharing love in that way. There's nothing wrong with that. But if we can be more intentional in that, it actually relieves stress from us. It creates a ripple into the collective consciousness because we're not adding our own stress and our own anxiety and our own worry and our own lack and our own scarcity into this already like huge field of all of those things. So in each decision that we make to be intentional in the giving of our gifts and to be intentional in who we're spending our money with and protecting our money line, right? So that's another big piece of this. This time of year, it's important for you to look at who are you giving your money to? Because custodianship is not just custodianship of money. It's not just about what you're doing, like how you're managing your money, how you're tracking where, your money's coming from, how you're, being aware of what's going on in your bank account. That's not all custodianship is about. It's not all about that's not all protecting the money line is about. It's also about who you're spending the money with. Where is your money going? And what intention is that being used for? So once it leaves you and it goes to that retailer, what then do they do with it? Are they doing good things with it? Or are they doing things that are detrimental to the collective with it? So we do have a level of responsibility there as well to be responsible with who we are supporting with our money and with our finances. So for me, that's why I love supporting small business this time of year, and entrepreneurs and, people in the online space, people in my community that have incredible services or products. And so I just really encourage you to, reevaluate how you are going about the gift giving part of the holidays. And remember that true connection and thoughtfulness is always more lasting and long-standing, and creates better memories than an expensive handbag or a toy, And obviously, for those of us who have younger children, of course I get Jack toys for Christmas. I mean, that's half the fun of Santa and all of that. But I do try to be much more intentional in the types of gifts that I'm choosing for him and getting him things that I know that he's actually going to be excited about and that he's going to use. And it's not just this 10 million presents free for all where everyone's got sensory overload and there's wrapping paper everywhere and gifts aren't even being played with. And then they're just literally being put away and then not being played with all year. Right. So I just think if we step into this next couple of weeks very intentionally in our personal practices, in how we're caring for ourselves, in our awareness around our wealth consciousness work, in coming back to our foundational basics, in, really diving deeply into that power of repetition and making sure that we're programming ourselves with the programs that we desire to have, not allowing the global elite or the stress and strain of the collective consciousness to program us in a way that we don't desire. And in order to do that this time of year, we really do have to be disciplined. We have to be disciplined with ourselves. We have to hold ourselves accountable for the commitments that we're making to ourselves around our personal practices. And I really recommend, if you can't do an hour, commit to 20 minutes a day, at least, of doing wealth consciousness work while you go through this time period. I promise you, your holiday will be radically different if you just onboard these few things that I've talked about. It's a beautiful time of year. And it is a time of love and joy, and it should be a time of peace. And we can bring it back to that place with intentional action and, being conscious and being aware of where our triggers are showing up as well, and being willing to look at those and being willing to work through those. But it all starts with us. It all starts with our mindset. It all starts with us using the tools that we've been given, because we can't change anybody else. We can't force our family members to act and behave differently than they're going to. So the only thing we really truly have control over is us and our internal landscape. So I don't know about you, but for me, I really desire to have a peaceful holiday season. And so I'm doing every single thing I can to make sure that that's my reality this year. So, I will leave you with that. I'm wishing everyone the most incredible and beautiful and peaceful and abundant and prosperous holiday season. And I know that that is a reality that you can have. You just have to, do a little bit of work to get there, because like anything else, anything worth having requires a little bit of work, and it requires a little bit of sacrifice. But as when you put in the work, the reward is always so much greater than you could have imagined. That's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to connect with me on social media and reach out. I love hearing from you. And if you want more of me, real, raw, and uncensored, make sure to join the Wealth Witch Telegram channel. It's my free channel where I share all of my random daily musings, as well as the information that I feel like is important and pertinent to my community. We've put a link to the Telegram channel in the show notes, so make sure to come join us over there if that intrigues you. Remember, wealth is a mindset, and you are the most powerful creator in your reality. Until next time, this is the Wealth Witch signing off.